Hello and welcome to my little trip down road testing memory lane. Q&A video today. Got some absolute corking questions. So without any further ado, let's start with Blue 00 Peg. Thank you very much for your question. Hi Nevesy, in your opinion, what is the motorcycle world's equivalent to the Porsche 911? In other words, sport bike with a history of steady yet restrained technological and aesthetic evolution of the original model's design ethos over decades. Like the 911, it must be brilliant on the road, but also have a long history of international and club level racing success. Naturally, it also must have spun off special variants, homologation, touring, etc. Finally, it must be just approachable enough to be attained one day by the average enthusiast. My vote is a GSX-R 750. What do you say? That is a great question. I love it. Got a soft spot for 911s. Yeah, 911 is kind of an automotive institution, isn't it? It started in the mid-60s. It's still around now. It's still got the same basic layout, engine in the back, kind of a bit of a glorified Beetle. Not really. But yeah, is there a biking equivalent? GSX-R 750 is an interesting one because you've got the 85 slab-sided GSX-R evolved through the late 80s into the slingshot, into the 90s where it got a bit bloated and a bit Elvis-like with its shell suits. Then went S-Rad, and then through the noughties, the Y, the K1, K2, K3, when it got nice and angular. K4 and 5 got even lighter, more raw. K6, 7, bit more refined. K8, bit more refined, and then the L1 was 2011, and that was the last time a GSX-R 750 changed. You can't buy it in Europe anymore. You can buy it some places in the world. That is a very good shout, but it hasn't changed since 2011, whereas the 911 has. So that's I'm not sure. What do you think? The things I have come up with is, at a stretch, you could say the Yamaha R1. If you were to go back to the FZR 1000, FZR 1000 turned into the X-Up, turned into the Thunder Ace, turned into the R1, turned into the cross-plane crank R1, and then the super duper cross-plane R1 that we've got since 2015. You could say that's got similar attributes to the Porsche. It was kind of an every person's bike, quite attainable back in the day, just about attainable now. It's won lots of stuff. It's won World Superbike Championship with Top Rack. It had a small engine kind of ethos change with its cross-plane crank, like the Porsche did when it went from air-cooled to water-cooled. But the only problem with that is that it's a different name. It's FZR versus R1, so maybe I can't have that. I've got to kind of choose sports bikes that are out now. ZX10 no, GSX-R 1000 no. What other 600s are there? Triumphs haven't really changed. MVs haven't really changed. I'm thinking Fireblade 92 that came out. Perhaps that doesn't go back far enough. The 911 goes back to the 60s, doesn't it? But the Blades won championships. BSB, WSB. That was a bike that everybody sort of aspired to when it first came out. It shook the world. So it's a difficult one. There's no real like-for-like sports bike, but I can think of something which is the 911 of the motorcycle world, and that's the BMW GS. Although it's not a sports bike, it's been around since the Arc. It's maintained the same basic layout. You know, it's got things about it that shouldn't work that really do. You know, it's got the boxer engine, it's got funny swing arm, it's got funny front end, but it all works. It's been evolved and developed into this amazing thing. And I guess it's won races along the way. Nothing kind of world championship or anything like that, but it's probably won its own little classes in off-roading along the way. So I would say GS, even though it's not a sports bike, but I will bow to your answer as well with GSX-R 750. But really interesting question. It would be good to know what you think. So yeah, let me know. So next is from 3VIIP Hi Michael, quick question please. Can I have my bike tested at a track day for dB sound for free before booking a session? I have a 2018 Kawasaki H2 SX SE. I've kept my cat on but bought a slip on. Thank you for these great videos. No problem. Thanks very much for your question. Well, first of all, if I had a hat here, I would tip it to you for taking your Kawasaki on a track day. There's no reason why you can't. It's going to be a bit of a beast. It's quite heavy, but they do handle, so you should have a lot of fun on it. In terms of, it's quite a quiet bike in standard trim. Even with a slip-on cam, it's still quite quiet. So I don't think you'd have any real problems at a track day. Trouble is, with a track day, you've got to book it in advance. So my advice would be, I would go and look where your local track is. I'd go and find out when the next bike track day is. And I don't think there's anything stopping you from going down there and just getting your bike noise tested, because you don't have to show any paperwork or anything like that when you go and get your bike noise tested at a track day. You just go along to the noise testing, which is normally done sort of between 8 and 9 in the morning before the track day starts. And you'll know exactly if your bike's going to be okay, and then you'll have to book your track day after. You might be able to chance your arm and go to the office and get a day. There might be some spaces on the day that you can pay for, but yeah, if you're unsure, if you think it might be too loud, maybe go to a track first, get it tested, and then book yourself in. But yeah, good luck. Let me know you get on. Next, this is from Matt Hobbs 6338. Thanks very much for your question. I was wondering if you could give me some tips on adjusting my riding style. I was in a bike accident, car, not motorcycle ironically, and left with a broken hip and a crushed ankle. Oof, painful. This was years ago, but both have limited mobility and affect my riding, mainly in moving my body position on the bike. I love fast-spirited riding. I'm wondering if you could give any tips, given you're in a similar situation. I love your videos. Thank you for doing them. No problem. Thank you for your question. Well, I'm glad you're still riding. I'm glad the injuries haven't put you off. My injuries don't sound anywhere near as bad. My basic problem on a motorbike is I can't bend my knees very well. So that kind of limits me on cramped bikes, but that's probably about it. I've got a bit of a dodgy wrist, but most bikers have. If your kind of limited movement is restricted just to the lower half of your body, I think you're going to be okay. On the road, it's the adjustments to your upper body that kind of make the biggest difference to how the bike goes around a corner, how confident you feel. I think if you can, even if you're riding flat-footed with the pegs in the middle of your foot, as long as you've got your toes turned into the frame, I think you're going to be okay just sat there without actually hanging your bum off. And if you've got your feet flat-footed, then it shouldn't crush your knees too much. So I think from the bottom half of the situation, it's fine. And then if you're still flexible with the top half of your body, I would say that when you're going into corners, just put pressure on your inside bum cheek as you go around a corner, and then lean forward just slightly enough to be able to bend your inside arm. And so if you're going through a left-hand corner, lean forward a little bit. You don't have to be extreme. Bend your inside arm and straighten your outside arm, and you'll find that it feels a lot nicer going through the corners, and you don't have to move the bottom half of your body. I mean, I don't move my bum on the seat on the road anyway. It's only when I go on the track I hang right off. So hopefully, if you just concentrate on your upper body, and there's some riding tips videos on the MCN YouTube channel that we've done for the road and for the track. So check those out, and hopefully that should help. So let me know you get on. Thanks very much. The next one is from Bendia 9985. Just a small tyre question. Would it be safe to use, say, a Pirelli Rosso Corsa 4 front tyre and a normal Rosso 4 on the rear? So a softer sticky front tyre and a harder rear for a bit more longevity. I ride a Street Fighter V4 and like spirited riding, and go and ride in Spain for better quiet roads. Hope I get the chance to hear your view. Well, many thanks, Ben. Thanks very much for your question. So a Pirelli Rosso Corsa 4 is a fast road stroke track tyre, and a Rosso 4 is a sports tyre, an all-round sports tyre. So generally the levels are you've got sports touring, sports, fast road stroke track, and then track day. So what I would say is modern sports tyres like the Rosso 4 have got so much grip for the road. So I see you're not taking it on the track, you're going to go and look at the nice roads in Spain. I'd say a Rosso 4 front has got more than enough grip. I don't think you need to go for kind of a stickier front tyre. You'll be okay just with the Rosso 4s. The other thing to bear in mind is that tyres are designed to work together as a pair. So, you know, a Rosso Corsa is sportier than a Rosso 4. So the construction of the tyres will be slightly different, and also the tyre shape will be slightly different, and the tread will be slightly different. And although if you mismatch them, they'll work okay, they won't work in the absolute 100% kind of glorious way they were designed to work together. So, you know, sometimes you might feel the tyres fighting against each other. You probably won't, because it's the same brand. If you were to put different brands on, you might. But yeah, it wouldn't be 100%. I'd rather have a pair of matching tyres. And I think if you go for an all-round sports tyre like the Rosso 4 or the Metzeler Sportec M9RR or the Bridgestone S22, blah, 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 all of those group of sports tyres will be brilliant on your Street Fighter on those lovely roads in Spain. I don't think you'll have a problem at all. So, but thanks very much for your question. Next, this is from Sean Fahy 9787. Hi Neaty, great to hear your thoughts of faired bikes versus unfaired bikes at cruising speeds. I've owned all naked bikes, currently on a W800, nice bike, for years, and have travelled far and wide. However, I'm starting to notice how much naked bikes can fidget in the wind when touring at 100k. I've always wondered how much more stable or calm would something like a CBR 650R be. Does a fully faired bike sit better at speed, or is it only helpful when stretching the throttle cables all the way? Wish I could hire a bike for the week to find out for myself. Well, thanks very much for your question. Really good question. Naked bikes, yeah, they're not as stable in the wind at high speed. You know, without any bodywork to shield you, the wind, it catches on all the sticky out bits of the bike. It catches on the mirrors, it catches on hand guards if you got them, catches on the little fairings, catches on the radiator, and it just pushes and pulls the bike around in extreme circumstances. And then there's the rider. So the rider's sitting up like a sail. The wind pushes on your arms, on your shoulders, and that can make the bike move as well. In most circumstances, it's not really a problem. Naked bikes are really stable. I mean, naked bikes are generally more roomy. So, you know, I really like naked bikes for that reason. I also like naked bikes because they give you more impression of speed. I like the fact they keep your speed down. But yeah, they can be tiring to ride. I mean, I've ridden a couple of long stints on naked bikes. I rode a Ducati 848 Street Fighter from Cannes to Stamford in a day. That's awful. Rode a Street Fighter V4 from Stamford to Scotland in real high winds. When you also get this thing with naked bikes where the wind's trying to peel you off the back, you're kind of clinging onto the bars, and it can be hard work to hang on sometimes. But naked bikes with cruise control are fine, but when you've got you're hanging by your fingertips sometimes. So naked bikes have got a lot going for them, but they can be unstable. They're never dangerously unstable, but they're hard work. If you were to get on an equivalent faired bike, then they are ultra stable. The wind just goes around the bikes. The fairings are really effective. They cut down the wind noise, you know, especially sports bike fairings with raked screens. everything's much quieter, much calmer and more serene. But then you've got the problem that generally fared bikes have got lower bars, so it's more wristy and there's less impression of speed, so you find yourself going faster than you think you're going. So it depends if you're going to do a lot of motorway miles, then yeah, getting a bike with a fairing, and a CBR 650R is a good shout because it's not too extreme, would be a good idea. But I think just for most riding, a naked bike's fine. You know, they're nice around town, they're more fun, they're more roomy, they're more involving, there's more impression of speed. So yeah, for that small amount of discomfort, I'd stick with your naked. But thanks very much for your question. Next, it's from CL558. Thanks very much for your question. I have a question. How many times have I just said question? I'm doing a Spa track day soon, and from your vids I know you love the place. Got any tips to maximise my time there? Yeah, I mean, Spa in Belgium is just one of the best tracks in the world. Really long, really fast, really dramatic, really undulating. It's right up there in the best tracks in the world. I've ridden it a few times. I've raced there twice. I've done 2 6-hour endurance races. I did one in 2019, I think, on an S1000RR. Rained the whole way through. Well, it didn't rain all the way through, but I had wets on the whole way through because it kept raining and stopping, raining and stopping. But I did it last year on my current S1000RR in the dry, and it was just amazing. You know, if you're going to do a track day, number one, enjoy it. Don't, you know, if nobody showed you your lap time, or if you didn't have it on your bike or whatever, you would have an amazing time. It's only when you start chasing times where it kind of detracts from the enjoyment, which is a bit of a shame. But the track is grippy, so you've got no worries about that. It's pretty hard to learn because most of the corners are blind, but it's a case of, like any track really, you've got to maximize the fast corners. So there's 2 lefts towards the end of the lap called Blanchiment, and they are proper flat out. Once you get up to speed, you come out of a right-hander before, when I was doing the endurance race last year, and you're completely up to speed, and you're up to 5th, I think, and you just throw it into this first left-hander. I don't know how fast you're going there, 130, 140, something like that, knee down, and it's just one of the most exhilarating things around. Eau Rouge is obviously, not Eau Rouge, Eau Rouge, coming down the hill past the old pits, and then the flip-flop, and then up the hill again. But somebody gave me some advice around Spa, which helped me drop my lap times to somewhere that was pretty competitive in the 6-hour race we did. And it was someone who was a local basically, and he basically said most of the corners are faster than you think. So, you know, even the corners that look quite small are actually much higher speed corners. So that would be my one piece of advice, apart from the real slow ones. So La Source hairpin at the end of the start finish straight, and then the chicane that goes on to the start finish straight, really, really slow. But apart from that, most of the other corners are pretty fast, even the ones that look slow. So that's my bit of advice. Build up to it, obviously, but you know, just run a little bit more speed through all the corners, and you'll see your lap times drop. But yeah, brilliant stuff. Let me know how you get on. You're lucky. I am jealous. Next one is from Sam Bolt 9026. Hi Neezy, love the videos. Thank you very much, and thanks for your question. Hope you're well. I was wondering if I could get your opinion on wind noise while riding. I've got a Schubert C5, which is supposed to be a quiet helmet, and use earplugs each time I go out. But when I get back, my ears are ringing like mad and a bit painful. Would you suggest getting a new lid? Well, thanks for your question. I have a similar quandary with noise on motorbikes because I'm deaf in my left ear. My right ear is really degrading, and I get really worried that we ride a lot of noisy bikes now. You know, a lot of bikes are tall adventure bikes or tall rounders or whatever you want to call them, and generally they've got quite vertical screens. They've got a lot of those sticky out bits I was telling you about, and they generate a lot of wind noise. I mean, there are some which are just, I don't want to ride the bikes, you know, secretly, because I don't like the noise. I've tried different helmets. Helmets do make a little bit of difference, but I think the thing that makes the most difference is the type of bike, really, and the type of person you are. You know, I can go on a bike and find it offensively loud, and another road tester who's with me doesn't. So, you know, it kind of depends on where you sit on the bike, how you sit on the bike, how tall you are, and all those kind of things. But I really think the choice of bike makes a big difference. The noisiest bikes are adventure bikes and tall rounders, like I say, and the quietest bikes are sporty or sports touring bikes with raked screens. If you get a nice rake screen and a double bubble screen or a tall version of the screen, that's probably as quiet as you're going to get on a bike. And naked bikes, some naked bikes are actually a lot quieter than you'd ever imagine, because they don't produce a lot of proper buffeting. You know, there's wind noise, but it's more of a kind of an acceptable, more tolerable level than the that you get on adventure bikes and tall rounders. So yeah, I don't know what bike you ride there, but I think bike choice makes more different than helmets. Helmets do make a difference. You know, avoid helmets with scoops on the top because they generate noise, like a smooth crash helmet. But for me, they're not night and day different from each other. Obviously, earplugs, I use foam earplugs. I've tried custom plugs, which a lot of people get on with, but I don't, because they don't expand. They just sit in your ear, even though they're good. So I use basically a fresh pair or fresh one earplug every time I ride, because even earplugs, after 2 or 3 uses, start wearing out, like the foam ones. So I just buy a massive bag of earplugs from Amazon, like the Howard Light ones, Max earplugs. Max Light, they're called, they're green. And I just use one and throw them away. And that's kind of the best thing, because it makes a big difference. Because sometimes with earplugs, you don't realise they're degrading until one day you think, why is this bike so loud? And then you put fresh earplugs in, and then the noise disappears. So yeah, get a quiet helmet, but get a quiet bike as well if you're worried about your hearing. Thanks very much for your question. Right, this is from Trev Moto, or T-Rev Moto. This kind of builds off the best journalist rider question you received a few episodes ago. If you had to build a team for an endurance race, let's say on Twins Cups bikes, R7s, R66s, etc., which motor journalist would you put on your team? I believe that's up to 4 riders. I guess you'd also want to take into account people around your same size. You'll be all sharing the bike. Love these videos. Right, spending a day with another 4 journos sharing the bike. Well, I'd have to have Chris North over, wouldn't I? And just leave him on the bike for the duration. Who else would I have? Well, our new road tester, Carl Stevens, is a really fast rider. So I'd have him in there. He's a lot smaller, so he'd be fast on one of those bikes, wouldn't he? And I guess as well, I'd probably, because he's in a bit of a racing purple patch at the moment, Al Fagin from 44 Teeth. That'd be a nice little team, I think. I'd probably be the weak link nowadays, but yeah, that would be good fun. So if anyone's got an R7. But yeah, thanks very much for your question. Next, from KRETCCX. Great video as usual. Thanks very much. Thanks for your question. Could you please make a video about wheelies? How to, tips, interesting stories, etc. Well, I love a wheelie. We made a few how to wheelie videos at MCN, and there's one on the site from back in 2007 or 2008. If you have a look at that one, we teach 3 MCN readers how to wheelie at Bruntingthorpe Proving Ground, and that's had millions of views. So it's a popular one. People want to know how to do it, don't they? Even if it's not something you should do on the road. Wheelies, I've also done how to do a crossed up wheelie. If you have a look on my channel, I don't actually demonstrate it. I just kind of talk through a video clip of wheeling. But wheelies they're fun to do and they look great. Seeing a picture of a motorbike with the front wheel up in the air crossed up has got to be one of the best looking pictures in my opinion. And really that's what I was influenced by, seeing those pictures of 500 Grand Prix riders in the late 80s at Jarama coming over the crest. So you've got people, Wayne Gardner was doing them, and Kevin Schwantz, who's my idol, coming over that hill, front wheel crossed up. That was what I wanted to do. That was who I wanted to be. That's why I got into motorbikes and wanted a motorbike race. And I've always wanted to do those kind of wheelies, and I've kind of mastered that kind of wheelie now. But I would say that I can't really wheelie properly. I can't do slow wheelies because you don't really have anywhere to, or any way of practicing on a normal bike. You know, you kind of need a stunt bike, don't you, to practice anyway. You need a stunt bike and you need a load of waste ground to be able to practice those kind of walking pace wheelies. Mine are more power wheelies. But I've actually tried, I went with, we did a feature with the Two Brothers stunt team. I had an S1000R at the time. They actually found wheeling my bike difficult because it's a road bike. Their bikes are hugely overgeared. They've got massive sprockets. You know, they're designed just to come up a walking pace. And all of their wheelies are controlled with the back brake. So they're never feathering the throttle like I would. It's all constant throttle and then balance on the back brake. Matty Griffin as well is another amazing rider that I've done features with in the past. And they're all about, high tick over and back brake. That's how they wheelie. And in actual fact, when the Two Brothers team were learning how to wheelie, they were telling me that they would screw their throttles partly open so they couldn't twist them. So they had to rely on the clutch to up, and then when they were up, they could feather them on the brake. But so I can't wheelie properly, but I enjoy a little wheelie from time to time. I mean, they're few and far between nowadays because most bikes have got traction control, and unless you turn the traction control off, most wheelie controls are mixed in with the traction, so you can't actually do them. So you've kind of got to make a concerted effort before you leave. You've got to decide whether you kind of want all the electronics on or off. You know, for that one time you might want to do a little cheeky wheelie, you've got to have the electronics off most of the time. Some bikes will let you just turn the wheelie aspect off, and bikes with no traction control, like the MT-07 that we've spoken about, will just do it on demand, which is really good fun. But yeah, that's when I feel most alive on a motorbike, when I can just pop the odd wheelie and, you know, psych you up for a race as well. If you just pop a little one on your warm-up lap just to get you the blood pumping. Maybe I'll make my own video about how to wheelie, but I think there's enough how-to wheelie videos out there. I don't think I need to make another one, but they're good fun anyway. And what do you think about wheelies? It'd be interesting to know. I mean, some people can't do them, don't want to do them, aren't impressed by them, and other people like me think they're the best thing in the world. Right, so here we go. Last question from the previous owners. If you could only ride or own bikes from one manufacturer for the rest of your life, what would it be? I love dirt bikes as much as street bikes, so that weighs heavily into my choice. I'd probably go Yamaha. Can't complain with the likes of a YZ250X, R1, NT09, T7, and of course the infamous TW200. Well, another great question to finish the video on. Thank you very much. I think like most people have got their favourite brand, haven't they? When I joined MCN, or before I joined MCN, I certainly had my favourites, and the ones I didn't like so much. And generally it was sort of an irrational dislike of certain brands, just because you kind of buy into certain things, you know, when you're influenced by racing or bikes that friends have got or whatever, or road tests even. But during, since I've been at MCN, that kind of, you know, having favourite bikes kind of just ebbs away really, because you're riding so many different bikes from so many different manufacturers. You don't have a favourite, because, you know, every manufacturer does fantastic bikes and every manufacturer does ordinary bikes. It's quite a spread. You know, sometimes you might be influenced by your dealings with a manufacturer. You know, when you're a journalist, you know, some manufacturers, press officers are nicer than others. They're all nice, obviously, but that doesn't really colour your opinion. You know, you just, when we're testing bikes, you ride each of the bikes as it comes to you, and you just talk about what it's like. But if I had to ride one manufacturer's bike for the rest of my life, I think it would probably be Yamaha as well. I think the R1 is probably one of the best track day bikes out there, one of the easiest to ride fast. It needs a little bit of work doing to it with its brakes and a few other bits and bobs, but you know, if I had a Yamaha R1 track bike, I'd be a very happy person. Yamaha T-Max is one of my favourite bikes, so I'd have a little town bike. All the MTs are just born to wheelie, so I really love those as well. What else have they got? I think they're kind of my standouts really. And then I love Yamaha as racers as well. You know, from when I got into racing, Eddie Lawson, Wayne Rainey, you know, the Marlboro bikes, iconic, aren't they? And then more recently, obviously Rossi on Yamaha and Top Rack on Yamaha. There's something about Yamaha, I've got quite a nice little edge to them that no other Japanese factory seems to. You know, Yamaha are quite innovative as well, aren't they? You know, they produced a bike with a funny front end, that GTS was it? They produced a bike with two front wheels with the Niken. You know, they produced the LC, and yeah, the list goes on. I don't think any other manufacturer really has done so much variety and been at the top in lots of different ways for so long. You know, you could say Ducati. You know, if you just had Ducatis, that wouldn't be a bad place to be, would it? But yeah, there's something not missing a little bit with Ducati for me. They don't do any relaxing bikes. They're all hardcore. And I think if I just wanted to go down the shop, I think I'd rather have a scooter than a Panigale. But yeah, so yeah, in answer to your question, I'm Yamaha. But what do you all think? Well, that's it. That's another Q&A done. Thank you very, very much for watching. Thank you for your questions and your comments. I really appreciate them. And stay tuned for the next video coming soon.